Hi guys, my name is Sam Willoughby. I was a professional BMX racer. I had a accident in 2016. I broke my neck at C567, and yeah, I'm now considered a C6 quadriplegic.
Sam, you got two big fans over here, brother.
Yeah,
we
man.
love what you do. Your outlook on life, post accident, all this stuff. We're going to get into that, as we chat.
I was a big fan of the proactive commercials personally.
Yeah. Hey, very good reference. And you're a good looking bloody rooster as well, I must say. We appreciate you joining us all the way over from America. You're in San Diego, is that right?
Yes.
What the F are you doing over there, bro? Come home. We don't have any COVID here.
I know. I've been here for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be worse. I'm happily living here with my wife Elise and our little dog Mila, and luckily, we're in a bit of lockdown, but we've got quite a few things done around the house this year, so that's been good.
How's it been for people with disability in terms of COVID over in America?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a daunting time because it's not something that you obviously want to get, but it's one of those things that's going to be, it's going to be around us probably for the foreseeable future. So I'm very fortunate in that we have a good setup here at the house, and with my wife being involved in Olympic sport over here, one of the Olympic training centers for paras and Olympians is here in Chula Vista. So I've got a lot of access to the medical staff there, and obviously they're up to speed with work with a lot of athletes with similar injuries to mine, and up to speed with things to look out for and that kind of thing. So I've been pretty lucky, but I'm sure it's very tough, especially for people that are alone and stuck in their houses.
Yeah. Do you know who trains in San Diego in that facility? Your favorite wheelchair tennis player.
Oh.
Who's that?
Oh God, his name's
David Wagner.
David Wagner.
Hey,
Canada's finest.
It's America's finest.
America's finest. Okay.
He's my arch nemesis, and Angus always cheers for him.
I love
That's
David
how
Wagner.
much of a jerk he is, Angus.
Yeah.
Sammy,
I know David.
You're a lad. You're an Olympic silver medalist, world champion multiple times. Can you take us back to the start of your life? Like, where did you grow up, and when did you start getting involved in BMX?
Yeah, I grew up in Adelaide, in suburbia Adelaide, just in a suburb called Trop Park, and was just mad on footy, AFL, and then obviously bikes. So my brother and I were just always riding bikes around the neighborhood, and South Australia is very cycling friendly. A lot of BMX tracks. There was a lot of just jumps around in random parks back then, and
a huge cycling culture as well in Adelaide.
It is, like home of Tour Down Under and Cycling Australia headquarters with the velodrome and that kind of thing. So we've always been around bikes, and started off, it was just kind of our transportation and something that we love to do. And mum and dad wouldn't get us a motorbike, so that was like the next best thing kind of. And so all my earliest memories are on a bike or kicking a footy. And was very fortunate to have a brother who was only 2 years old, or 18 months older than me. And we were just best mates and did everything together.
So a bike has been synonymous with your life and still is, and you got to reach the absolute pinnacle of it. So you're 29 years old. You had your accident in 2016, so you've been disabled for 4 years. One thing I find really interesting is, and something I'd love to talk about with you, is a lot of people who become disabled or have an accident that leaves them with a disability, they might, obviously your life is immediately going to change. But when your life and your career up until that point evolves around physicality, it's got to be a little bit different to those who are maybe academic. What was that like for you when you realised that the sport that you've grown up in Adelaide, now taken to the world, is never going to be the same for you? Or was, in those first instances, did you think that you might one day be able to get back on the bike in the same way that you had for your whole life?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it kind of went the other way for me. I was in many respects fortunate from the standpoint that I look back even now, and I feel I did more than I ever would have dreamt of as a kid on a bike, and So there wasn't really anything left on the table, and my mind instantly went the other way in that I I appreciated all there's just the basic things, like being able to, reach the high cupboard and um, not having to think twice when you go to the petrol station and you got to make sure you're X amount of distance away from the curb so you can get your wheelchair in
Well
to
said.
fill your car up with petrol, and just all those little things that you never think of that people that with disabilities have to constantly think about and go through it on a daily basis. So for me, I realized that what I loved about BMX was the competition side of it, and for me, I was able to. Fortunately, I feel like I had a skill set that I gained from sport, where I was able to kind of instantly switch gears and figure out ways to transition the passion and the things that I loved about sport to other avenues of life, whether it be coaching or I gained a huge passion for coffee and started, using my attention to detail and putting that into making coffee every day, and then eventually into the coaching side of things. And um, so yeah, I was able to kind of, I feel like, transition those traits or the actual things. What I liked about BMX was deeper than just riding a bike.
I love it.
Whereas I feel like, so unfortunately, I meet a lot of kids and stuff that get hurt at a really young age, and that's tough. And I find it really hard to, to even, my situation is different in that respect because, I think of a 15-year-old kid that's just starting out, riding BMX, for example, and he's got the world in front of him. And then you have an accident and you haven't really figured out who you are maybe yet. And now you got to make that sharp transition.
So do you find that, and it's great that you have that mindset, and I think that's amazing, and hopefully people can take something away from that. But do you find that because you got to reach those pinnacles of your sport in competition, that lessened the blow? There wasn't sort of things you needed to tick off. You felt like you'd achieved a lot within the sport. Do you think had it been, before you got a silver medal at the Olympics, or something like that, like some sort of huge high in the sport world, that you could maybe justify it a little bit more?
Potentially, yeah. I don't know because I obviously it happened when it did, and it's hard to put myself back
Yeah.
in those shoes. But if it would have happened earlier, um, I mean, I look back and there's races I feel I left on the table. I feel like there was
Mm.
still much more I could have done within the sport, but I don't have any. I go to the BMX track every day. I go to the track where my accident happened twice a week with my wife,
Oh, wow.
and I don't ever sit there and go, oh, this sucks, or I wish I was out there, or I can't believe this happened to me. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, I think I was I'm at a place where I'm satisfied, and I think I'm satisfied because I left it all out there, and yeah, I didn't win every race, and there was still that elusive gold medal, which I would have loved to have gotten, but I don't feel like I could have done anything more, and there was no stone left unturned. And I'm thankful for the fact that the biggest thing I got out of it was just a skill set, and
Mm-hmm.
a skill set of work ethic, a skill set of a competitive mindset, and a process driven mindset, which now my horizons are so much broader than that, and I can take all those skills into so many other areas of life. And honestly, I feel probably more in control of my life now than I did as an athlete, because I realize like I have this set of keys that I can go and use now.
Man, it's a great mindset. I'll never forget, Angus. I don't think I've told you this. At the London Paralympic Games for me, Sam, you competed at the London Olympics. I
Yep.
turned up at the village, right? And you go in the village, you get bussed in. Holy shit. The BMX track was the most hectic thing I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
It is like I can't. Have you seen actual Olympic level BMX?
No,
TV, yes, but it was so steep
Mm.
and big, right? Did you have any like accidents as a youngster growing up, where you ever had any like serious injuries apart from obviously the one when you had your major crash?
because there's always prevalent danger, we guess.
Yeah, I mean, I had obviously a ton of crashes right the way through my career, but actually never broke a bone
There you
my
go.
whole
Wow.
career
Wow.
Wow.
until the big one. So um, And I don't have any footage of my crash, but I doubt it was the worst. I had crashes that looked pretty nasty that I hopped up and walked away from totally fine. And this one, I mean, I felt it, I lived it, and I know the speeds and the size of the jump that I crashed on, and it couldn't have been, from a visual standpoint, I know it wouldn't have looked anywhere near as bad as some of those other ones.
That's the thing with brakes, isn't it? I mean, it's all about angles and manipulation and timing. Can you take us back to the day that the crash happened? Was it a different day? Can you take us through what happened?
Yeah, so my crash was basically right on pretty much 4 weeks after the Rio Olympics. And I'd had a very successful campaign up until the final at the Olympics, and a couple of mistakes in the final, and just ended the day in 5th or 6th. And it was a pretty disappointing blow. And I actually had a torn ACL at the Rio Olympics. So I tore it back in March before the Olympics. And then the plan was, just keep your head down. And luckily, being a cycling sport, I could keep racing with a brace on because there's no lateral movement. So it really didn't affect me at all as far as racing was concerned physically. But the plan was, just full steam ahead and try to win that Rio race and then get my knee fixed. And obviously, Rio didn't work out how I had hoped. And after Rio, I probably should have had some time off to just mentally and physically repair and recover. And I went back I actually raced a race 2 weeks after Rio in Louisville, Kentucky, just trying to, I was just like a bull at the gate, just trying to make up for that loss in Rio, really, and win the next race. And the weekend my accident happened, I was supposed to be in Minnesota with Elise for a charity event, and changed my flights and stuff, went home and was like, I'm just, head down, I'm going to win the next race. And it was just it wasn't even a training day. It was more or less an active recovery day on a Saturday out at the local track that I rode every day for the past 6 years, and just doing a routine warm up and going through the little rhythm section is what we call it. It's just a bunch of little jumps in a row. And I'd always go through it on my back wheel, like manualing. And that was kind of my warm up. And this particular time just went through going a little bit faster maybe, and tried to just overcorrect and went up and flipped off the back of my bike, or we call it looping out. And I remember being in the air and kind of like thinking I've been in that position hundreds of times as a kid. I always flipped off the back of my bike and land on your back, you knock the wind out of yourself. And I remember thinking like, all right, I'm going to come down, I'm going to be winded. And by the time I hit the ground and came to and realized I wasn't winded, and then the next thing you do is obviously you do your full body scan, and sort of that was when I realized I couldn't feel my legs. And the reason being is because I'd obviously gone completely upside down and come down on the top of my head, basically gone half a backflip, and come down and land on top of my head and crushed my cervical spine.
So you're, excuse me, so you're incomplete. So you have use of your arms and a little bit affected, but obviously more so on your lower body. Can you tell us, if you can remember, what's going through your head, man, when you're lying there and you can't feel your legs, right? Do you think, do you catastrophize the worst, or do you kind of talk yourself into it that you're going to be all right?
No, I knew it was bad. I didn't really understand spinal cord injury at the time, and I had no pain. So my immediate thought process wasn't like, oh, I've broken my neck. I didn't know why I couldn't feel my legs. I just knew I couldn't. And then when the EMT sort of started running through the checks, and I could see his hand like on my chest, and I could see it was right there, but it felt like it was like a foot off of my chest. And basically, obviously, because I was just numb from the neck down, and the best way I describe it is like a wetsuit full of water. And actually early on, my hands did go out in those initial checks at the track. And that was, I'd say that at that point when I couldn't squeeze the hand of the medic, that was when, I'd say that sort of real panic set in for me. I don't think right from the get-go, it was never like I dismissed BMX pretty, like I'd say right from the get-go. My immediate thought process went to like, am I going to be able to stand up again? Am I going to get married? Am I gonna, like all of those kinds of things? Because there was another rider there with me, and he knew I was training for this other race coming up in November, and he was like, you trying to keep me calm on the track, like, you're going to be all right, we're going to get ready for November, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. Obviously positive reinforcement, and I remember just saying to him like, no, this is not good. And
so November wasn't what was going through your mind, it was the more simple basic things. That's interesting.
It just didn't. I mean, obviously, when you feel that you're paralyzed, and I just felt bigger than that. It didn't feel like it was going to be a quick fix at that point, and BMX quickly went out of my, like the thought of riding a bike again went out of my mind. It just seemed bigger than that.
What did you know about disability pre that day? So obviously you're an Olympian, you might know something about the Paralympics, but like, what was your knowledge of disability, like totality?
Yeah. I mean, I'd been around friends that had like growing up in Adelaide, motocross mates. And I remember one of my friends, Ben Harris, when I was growing up, he had an accident and was paralyzed. But I mean, other than like Ben's a paraplegic, that's as far as it went. And I feel guilty for that now. And I'm probably a little, I'm more understanding of people not understanding a lot of my stuff, I would say.
That's so true.
Because I didn't, and I had no idea, just everything, from going to the bathroom to everything. And it's it's a complicated deal. And I wish I would have had a better knowledge, other than I knew people that had paralysis, and even people, born with disabilities. Like my mum worked in like special education when I was growing up. So I was around it a little bit, but that was more, I'd say like defects at birth because of alcoholism or things like that. And
But it's interesting, you had the opportunity to learn when you were a kid, but kind of didn't take up that opportunity, but looking back on.
Yeah.
And I feel the same, now that I'm in this space, I'm able-bodied. I look back and I'm like, I really wish I did take up, there was a course at our school, an opportunity to go and take on a special education aspect of, and I was like, nah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think 2 kids did it out of the opportunity of hundreds. And I was like, I really wish I took that opportunity up. So I understand that feeling. I think a lot of people...
The biggest thing I think back on is like, when I would look at someone in a wheelchair before, I used to think like the hardest thing they're probably going through is the fact that they can't walk. And that's probably the
least.
That's the least.
We keep learning that. We keep learning that. Bladder function seems to be the really important one.
Yeah.
So you're at that moment, you've got the feeling, like you said, it's like a wetsuit. You don't know what you're feeling. You don't know what your diagnosis is. I'm sure you get medevaced out. When's the moment that you realize that you've got your spinal injury and you've been diagnosed?
It was a while. So I was eventually airlifted from the track, and then they still hadn't really said anything to me about it. They were just trying to stabilize me, basically keep me as still as possible. I knew I was motionless, but I mean, even if I wanted to try to move some things or I was strapped so tight to the backboard, and it was very like, do not move, stay still. And I was with it. I didn't have a head injury or concussion or anything. So I was airlifted to the hospital, which was about a 5-minute helicopter flight. And then when I got there, I was kind of just rushed through the hospital ward, and there was no one with me at the time. It was just me, because my
partner was away.
Fiance Elise was in Minnesota. Mom and dad obviously are in Australia, brother, everyone. So I was rushed through emergency, and just kind of in the first thing they did was put me through an MRI scan, and even at that point still hadn't told me anything. And then I was brought out of the MRI scan and was basically just waiting there. And that was when a surgeon came around, and he didn't really introduce himself. He just said, close your eyes, and closed my eyes. And he said, what am I doing? I said, squeezing my right big toe. And he said, okay, we need to go to surgery now. And I remember saying to him, like, for surgery for what?
Why? And what are you doing? Where are you touching?
And why? And, you know, I was motionless on this stretcher, but still kind of like, at that point, I'd never even been under the knife. Like, I'd never had a surgery. And
never broken
my
a bone.
immediate thought, my immediate thought was like, I need to consult with mom, dad, Elise, someone.
Second opinion, something.
And he said, you've broken your neck at C5, 6, 7. C6 is burst fracture, and it's compressing your spinal cord. And if we don't relieve that pressure, your chances of recovery are 0. And the next question, I said, well, what are the risks? And he said, well, when we're going in there, we're pulling those bone fragments out and relieving the pressure. If we hit any higher, you know, permanent paralysis from your neck down, it's a very sensitive area, is possible.
Oh my gosh.
And then I asked him, do you know what you're doing? And he said, yeah.
Have a look at my wall of doctorates.
Oh god.
My diplomas.
And then off we went, and it was
so you calling Elise, you calling your parents? You don't even get a chance.
No, I hadn't spoke to. I spoke to when I was waiting in the ambulance for the helicopter at the track. They held a phone to my ear, and it was Elise, and she was like rushing to the airport in Minneapolis to fly back there, and we had a brief chat. But still, it wasn't like, oh, this is what they've told. It wasn't. I mean, I was panicked. She was panicked. It wasn't like it was just like, stay tight, stay, you know, be well, and I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Shit, man.
You're gonna be okay.
How was she? Was she okay?
Sorry.
How was she in that moment when she first spoke to her?
She was holding it. I could tell she was trying to hold it together for my sake, but I mean, I could tell her voice was broken. And
but for people that don't know as well, your partner is a world champion herself in BMX, gold medalist.
Silver medalist
as well. Yeah, so you guys are equal. Then very nice. So she knows and understands the risks as well. And I think, I mean, we often think about this as well, and you will now as well, Sam. Like, it happens to us as well, but it happens to our partners and our family as well, doesn't it? And like they feel as much of the effect as you do.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing the psychologist said to me when I got to rehab. He held a meeting with my family and Elise and I, and he said, Sam's not the only one injured here. You know, this whole group is injured. This whole group has a broken neck right now. And I remember when he first said it, I was like, no, they don't.
Yeah. You're like, fuck off. I'm the one in the wheelchair.
We'll get to that in a second. I want to go back to, because we've talked to someone or people with high level spinal injuries as well. But you brought up a really interesting point. You're about to go into a major operation with somebody you've never met before, and literally your life is in their hands. I guess I've never thought about that I've never thought about the doctors that are involved in that process and the speed of that, because do you know you're lying there stiff as a board, looking at someone you've never met and wondering probably, is there a specialist in this field that in 2 days' time I can fly from XYZ in the world to come and do this operation that could be better? But this doctor's telling you, no, we need to go right now. On top of everything, I mean, can you take us through the medical side of things and that thought process?
And that was why I asked that doctor those questions. And I think especially being an Olympic athlete, like every time we had an injury before or I got sick, it was like a phone call back to Cycling Australia and Adelaide, and then they're like, oh yeah, we have a network and we have connections to this person, that person. And,
we'll get you a CT scan and some ultrasound and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
exactly how it works.
It was never like just go and see the local doctor. It was like always like, oh, we look for the best.
He's a specialist, yeah.
And here I was at the local Hillcrest Hospital in San Diego that I'd never been to, and this guy was like, yeah, I'm going to pull the bone fragments out of your spinal cord. My immediate thought was like, I need to speak to mum, dad, Elise, Dave Hayes, who was like our medical person at CA. Like,
Yeah, that
I don't
seems
know if
like
this
it's
is the right move.
a conversation that should be slowed
But you
down,
can't.
but there
Yeah,
is no time to wait.
but there's no time. Yeah,
Wow.
and they said like I was so lucky that I got in, and well, that's the best. The quicker you can relieve that pressure, the better. And
Yeah.
I was within 5 hours or something.
I
But
can't imagine what was
yeah,
going. All of these emotions, thoughts going through your head, Sam. That's crazy.
Sam, do you get jealous of Elise still cycling?
no, not at all. No. Um, like I said, I've pulled out of. I think what I pulled from BMX was the competition that I loved,
Mm.
just the competitive side, and I get that now with coaching, and I still enjoy watching the sport. I enjoy doing my own exercising that I can do.
Yeah, you're
And
bloody ripped, bro.
yeah,
You have got swole. Like when we met before, I was like, and you're walking around, I'm like, look how big he is now. You would have broken your bike, I reckon. You'd be too heavy. Look at those shoulders.
But there was a process, Sam, of recovery where did you try and do as much as you could to get back to normal? Well, and they
yeah.
probably shouldn't use that term, but the old Sam Willoughby, trying to get back on the bike, try and recover some sort of normality of what your normal was?
Absolutely. I mean, I did rehab, like specialty rehab, and sourced out every bit of information I could for 2 years, and I did it 6 days a week, and everything from trying all these kooky kind of Eastern medicine things, and just anything, honestly, I just wanted to feel like I'd turned over every leaf, and
Yeah, that's fair.
tried everything I could to, and early on, I think everyone that has an injury like this, you go through a pretty dark time of depression, and I faced all of that, and
Yeah, how long did that last?
I really felt
How long did that feeling last?
it was probably the first 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
Seems to be pretty
Um,
familiar time frame.
Yeah,
I mean, some
and
people
just
never
never
get
recover,
better,
that's
to be,
right.
to be honest. Some people
yeah,
never come
yeah.
recover. Yeah.
And for me, it was I felt like my only way out of it was to walk again. Like if I didn't walk, I was a failure and I was useless, and I didn't want to live that life, and I didn't want to even go down that avenue of seeing what that life had to offer. And for me, a turning point was I met someone over here who was he's a NASCAR crew chief, and he's actually in a wheelchair. And it was April, so my injury happened in September. So it was around 6-7 months after my injury. And I'd just been sort of, since we got back from hospital, which was New Year's Eve of 2016, I'd just basically locked myself in the house and was just doing therapy every day, twice a day. When I wasn't doing therapy, I'd lay in the bed and visualize and trying everything. And I was skinny. I was pretty white. I mean, I'm very albino as it is, but I was pretty white, and just never went outside. Didn't want to be seen in public. I was scared to be seen with Elise in public because I just felt like people would look at me like, oh, why is he with her? And I didn't know how to answer questions when we went in public, and I wasn't confident with my skill set in a wheelchair to get into a restaurant, to get into a bathroom. At that point, I needed help. Some people were literally lifting me in the car, and I just didn't want to go anywhere. And so I locked myself in the house, and my brother and his wife were living with us, kind of splitting time with my mum to help out. And it got to around April, and there was a NASCAR race in Fontana, which is about 2 hours from us. And my brother was like, "We're going to the race," and I was like, "I'm not going to that race. I don't want to. Like, I'd love to, but I don't want to be seen in public. I don't want to. No." And anyway, he basically literally threw me in the car and made us go to the race. And I knew some people in the NASCAR industry, so Matt organized like some tickets, and the guy that I knew, he organized all these meet and greets, and which I was pretty scared about, because we're meeting all these Jimmy Johnson, all these NASCAR drivers, and here I am in a wheelchair, and I get introduced as, this is Sam, he's an Olympic BMXer, and I can tell they're like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And when did this happen? And I didn't even know how to explain that. And I wasn't confident in myself. And anyway, We did all the meet and greets, and the friend that had organized the tickets, he said at 10 o'clock, you need to just do me a favor, go to the number 13 hauler. There's a guy I need you to meet. His name's Booty Barker. And he said he's in a wheelchair. And at that point, I didn't want to meet anyone in a wheelchair. And it feels low to say that now, but that's just the point I was at, because I didn't feel like I wanted to hear anything that they had to say, because I didn't want that to be my life, and I wasn't ready for that. But anyway, out of respect, we went there to meet Booty, and he comes rolling out the back of this trailer and wheelies down, and he's, "Hey Sam, how you going?" Like, just this most bubbly, upbeat guy you've ever seen, and he's in great shape and solid looking guy. And we go up in the back of the hauler, and he's climbing up and down the walls, pulling down exhausts, and taking us on his laptop and showing us all the engine data. And he's this 40-year-old guy in a wheelchair. 30 years ago, it had the same, 20 years prior, it had the same injury as I'd had, broke his neck at C6. And here he was, he's now an engineer running this multi-million-dollar race team. And he's married, in great shape, independent, travels the country every week. And he looked at me and he said, when did you get hurt? And I was like, 7 months ago. He's like, "You look great. What are you going to do now?" And I didn't know how to answer that. So I was just kind of taken back. And my brother kind of answered it for me. And he's like, Sam really wants to walk again. So, he's doing everything he can, doing a lot of rehab and trying to get back on his feet. And then Booty said, "Cool, then what?" I didn't know how to answer that. And then my brother looked at Booty and he kind of said, like, when did you, Matt didn't really know how to ask the question, but he was like, when did you stop rehab? And he's like, "Rehab? I didn't do no rehab. They said to me, you can dress yourself, you can leave the hospital. I did that in 3 weeks, got the hell out of there and went and got my engineering degree, and here I am."
Look at that.
And I was pretty just taken back, because until that point, everything when I was in rehab hospital was like, you're going to need a modality for this. You're going to, traveling, it's going to be tough to travel. You're not going to be able to do it. You're going to have to get to the airport 4 hours before, and all this organizing. And, you basically, I'm going to roll into the back of a minivan for the rest of my life. And everyone's job is around me is just going to be to keep me alive, and nothing's possible. And then here was
probably
Booty,
able-bodied people telling you that as well.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And then here was Booty with the same injury as me. And he's telling me, just do whatever you want. I drive an F350, and, if the bed's a little high, just get stronger and climb on it. And
you can see why stories like this are so important, because you needed a role model like that to see that you could live, right? And you could be whoever you 100%. Want. And that's why podcasts like this is important, because people that'll have an injury with their neck will listen to Sam and be like, "I thought my life was over." And here's a guy who had a great life, Olympic silver medalist,
but also had the same, mindset of,
Correct.
I'm doing everything I can to stand, when really your life changed when you realized your life's going to be bigger by sitting.
Yeah, exactly right.
And since that day that I met Booty, I would say I'm happier than ever in my life.
I love that, bro.
It's awesome, man.
And I think that's huge, given that from a stereotypical standpoint, 4.5 years ago, I was at the pinnacle of a dream job for many kids. And yeah.
You're an Olympian.
I love that, mate. I love your mindset. It's very impressive. You're
Huge.
very impressive. How old are you? 29?
29,
29, brother. And you're so well spoken. If you don't mind me asking, and you can always tell me to shut up, how did your relationship go when you had your accident? Did you have times where you thought it was going to end? Did you feel like a burden? How did you get through that?
Yeah, I felt like a massive burden early on. And actually, the first thing I said to Elise when she got to the hospital was, "You're not marrying me. You're not marrying a vegetable."
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
And just because I felt there was just so many unknowns. I didn't know how I was going to appreciate myself, let alone have, and I knew the kind of person that she is that she wasn't going to go anywhere. She wasn't going to, and she just she just never wavered the whole way through it. Like, she never, I don't think she barely cried in front of me. A couple of times it was just always like, what's the next thing to help you? And like I wanted to stand at our wedding, and that was a big goal of mine, but it was never for her. It was she didn't care, and she said that from the get-go, if that's something that I wanted to do, but she was marrying me either way. And I'm just very fortunate. I think I'm just everyone says a lot of the time, oh, you're so strong the way you've dealt with it. And this, I think I'm just a product of a great network of people that were around me that picked me up and kept pushing me forward.
You said you left no stone unturned when looking for, any sort of practical or medicinal ways to try and get back on your feet. Did you come across stories of people who had had the same injury and were walking? And do you find that was detrimental to your personal recovery? Like, great for them, but did you find that, not idolizing those sort of stories, but kind of trying to replicate them was diminishing for your character and your person in a chair?
I don't want to say that was diminishing. I think that at the time it was really good because it was stories of hope and stories of, that's what I wanted to see at the time. And, I think once again from sport, I'm just lucky to have the skill set that I had from a mindset standpoint, in that I was able to identify like early on that every one of these deals was very different, and that, some people won in different ways, and some, and that just because that person walked, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to walk. But I wanted to hear their story. And I think from sport, like, just because that's how that person won doesn't necessarily mean my path's going to be the same as that, but maybe I can learn something out of that story. And probably my biggest regret is how I steered away from the people in wheelchairs. And I think that because I didn't want that to be my outcome at the time, but I've learned more from people in wheelchairs than probably anyone in my whole life, pre and post injury. And yes, so I'd say, I don't want to say that they were the stories that we searched for. Like, the whole family searched for those stories. There's a miracle story. Someone walked in 3 months, and you hold on to that. You hope, like, oh, maybe they had a secret. And
I guess at the time, that's what you needed. You needed that hope. But then you found, at that NASCAR race, what you really needed.
For sure.
I think sometimes, and just from my personal point of view, those stories are hopeful, but they're also dangerous because people drop crazy amounts of money to try and figure out ways to do nothing's going to come back, right? I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, go to Berlin and drink beers and have sex and party with that money. I'll have fun with you with that money, right? And it's true, isn't it? And then once it's like something clicks in your head, right? From people with accidents, even people like me, like, oh, I just got to get busy living, right? And then as soon as that day comes, you're like, oh my God, why was I doing all that? You know what I mean?
And you guys have very similar stories in chairs of you wouldn't want your life to be any different. You've never been happier.
Exactly, yeah.
In the certain circumstance that you're in now, which is amazing.
Hey, Sam, does your Olympic silver medal mean more, less, or the same to you now post accident?
Probably the same, to be honest. Yeah. It doesn't, it's more, I'd say what means more to me now is I honestly, I don't remember a lot of it's all of the journey along the way that I remember the most, just the training camps, the ups and downs of, relationships, the great people you met, and, the traveling the world. And those are the things that are at the forefront of my mind when I think back to sport and to BMX especially. And I think it means more in the respect I'm glad I have it, and it's something that will always be a part of me, but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not my identity, I wouldn't say. Yeah.
This is just an opinion as well. Do you think you got enough support and recognition when your accident happened, especially in Australia? Because you're the best in the world, right? You were. I felt like I knew about it because obviously I had an interest because you were now in a chair, and I like reached out to you and made like said good day and stuff. I feel like it wasn't big enough news / didn't probably get the support and recognition that you deserve. Not only in BMX because it's a smaller scale sport for sure, but when it happened, am I reading too far into that, or do you feel a bit of that too?
I actually thought I got a lot of support.
Okay,
But
good.
I actually thought and that may have been. I mean, I was in hospital with people that just. I was one of the fortunate ones in that respect, especially being here in America with their medical system. And
Yeah.
I was in hospital with kids my age that had the same injury that the insurance wouldn't even buy them a shower chair. Like
Oh man.
they just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm very fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I was able to get everything I needed, and I felt a great amount of support. But yeah, I think the positive side of it is I think I have a responsibility now, and it's healthy for me as well to try to be out in public and be. I think that was what people were scared of at first, a little bit, in the respect that there were some sanctions and some people in BMX that were scared to have me back at the track because it was like you were basically saying, here's one of the best to ever do it, and this happened to him.
Yeah, this could be you.
But
getting
definitely
away.
sign your kid up.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can we? They're like, hey Sam, do you mind just going to hide behind that over there so no one can see you?
Sam, we're going to get a photo of you from your chest up holding your silver medal. Don't need anything below the chest. No, just need, that's fine.
So I felt it was my responsibility to show that I'm okay and I'm happy, and this sport didn't do this to me, and it was an accident, and that I was not bitter at the sport, and that there's still so much great to come out of our sport, and it is a very safe sport in many ways, and I'm and that's what I think was so surprising about my injury was I think my profile in the sport, and then also the fact that it is really like one of the first in our sport, especially at that level.
There's if you go back to Sam Willoughby, and obviously I'm just guessing, and please fill in the blanks, but in, let's say, March 2016, there's two things that are guaranteed in life: death and taxes.
Yep.
If you could go back to March 2016, Sam, so able-bodied wheelchair, sorry, not wheelchair, BMX champion, and we all want to be remembered for something and leave a legacy. What do you think you would have at that point liked to be remembered for versus the Sam that's sitting here today with us?
I think at that point I probably wanted to be remembered as the best BMXer ever.
Right.
And that was kind of where I was trying to get to.
Of course.
And then now, I don't know, I guess I'm still trying to write that story, but I think I just want to be remembered as a genuine, hardworking,
Good husband?
competitive person, and ultimately a good husband, and one day hopefully a great father.
Yeah.
If you're in the,
It's funny how that changes, though, isn't it?
it is, yeah. If you're on the way to the track, if you can go back in time, and you're on the way to Chula, was that the name of the track?
Yeah, Chula Vista. Yep.
Do you turn left and not go there that day, or do you go?
If I knew the outcome, or...
Yeah. So do you regret what happened? Like, if you can turn back time and change it, what would you do?
No, I don't regret. No, I don't. No, I don't regret going to the track that day. I think early on those thoughts went through my head a couple of times, but I was doing what made me great at my sport for so many years, and that was that I was just 100% ball at the gate, all in, give it my all, and try to be better than I was yesterday every day. And ultimately I may have overdone it and maybe pushed too hard at some point, but if I didn't have that mentality, I would not have been world champion at 20 years of age.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this is a thing that is only available to people with a disability, but I think there's this certain mindset about able-bodied people. Maybe it can be in sport that you want to be remembered for your career. You want to be, the best at your profession. And I think a lot of people down the track realize that, no, I want to be remembered for being a great dad and the legacy that I pass on. There's something that I was thinking about the other day, and this is something about talking about that before for you, Sam, is Neil Danaher was an amazing Essendon football player, coach, extraordinary AFL legend that would have gone down in the history books. But Neil Danaher is going to be remembered for his philanthropy in the MND world.
His purpose.
His real purpose. I didn't know what MND was, motor neuron disease, before Neil Danaher existed, before the Big Freeze, before the Beanies. And that's what he's going to be remembered for. And I reckon if you ask him between the two parallels of living two huge lives in one, I think it's a pretty easiest answer for his family and for him, for that legacy. And I love that your story hasn't been told yet and you're still writing. And I think that's really great. And I think it's going to be a great legacy.
Good on you, brother. Hey, I was just going to say, before Bob.
Yeah.
I'm on your Instagram right now. Two things. One, long hair better than short hair.
Yeah, I really like the long hair look.
Hot.
Right? Oh, okay.
Two, you are benching some. You are bench pressing some serious big boy weights, right? Like I'm like 125 keg plus bench. That's massive.
PBs.
Would you ever do Paralympics? Any vibe?
Are
you good at sport? Have you tried sport?
I have a hand cycle that I ride a bit for fitness, and then I'm a meathead, so I love lifting weights.
Yeah.
And right now I'm pretty full on into the coaching with my wife and Anthony Dean and Lauren Reynolds, who hopefully will go for Australian BMX. But I don't know, it's in the back of my mind. I wouldn't say it's at the forefront at the moment. I did look at the bench press for the Paralympics, and
you would get
some Chinese bloke won and bench like 230 kilos.
Hang on. I need everybody right now, right after this episode ends, to go on YouTube, Google Paralympic bench press world record. It was a guy from Iran. He weighed like 160 kegs himself. He benches nearly 400 kegs.
Paralympics.
Yep.
It's insane. Yeah.
And it I think it was like 340 he benched.
Jeez.
You're doing one thing. That's 200 kilos more.
It's insane.
It's incredible. They have people of like short stature bench like 125.
Yeah, because
they've got short legs.
Their body weight for the weights they're lifting, it's better than the able-bodied people.
Yeah, 100%, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
they're top heavy.
Yeah. So, is there a sport in mind you would do if you had a crack?
I like the weightlifting side of it, but I don't think that there probably isn't. It's tough. My hands are still not great.
Yeah.
So I can't bench the barbell that well.
Bro, you're doing 125. I bench like 70. So you're doing all right, right?
And my triceps have taken a bit to come back, but I don't. Yeah.
Maybe I'm always looking for doubles partners.
It's not going to be Tokyo, but another 4 years to think about it,
I'm always looking for doubles partners, Sammy, mate. Come back. Don't tell Heath, my doubles partner, but we'll drop him, brother.
Yeah, you boys. I'd love to get out there and try it one day with you. But
mate, I'll happily kick her ass.
Sam, we do a bowl of uncomfortable. This is where people send us questions aimed at being an uncomfortable question, but usually with a comfortable answer. This one is actually a really great question, and shout outs to Reese who sent this one through. He knew you were going to be on the podcast. How do you feel when you watch exhibitions like Nitro Circus? I think he's referencing a motocross rider who had a fall and became a paraplegic, I believe. Obviously these demonstrations, do you watch stunts like that and kind of irk at the possibility knowing that the injuries can exist with your own personal experience?
You know what I cringe more at? When I see like my little nephew on the trampoline or something.
It's true though.
Yeah.
It can happen. It can happen.
Like,
or diving into the shallows at the beach.
Yeah, he's doing somersaults and stuff. And that I cringe. I'm like panicking all the time with that stuff. But the Nitro Circus motocross and all that. If I see a crash now, then and it's somewhere in that direction of, someone lands on their head, or you see someone motionless and think, the worst goes through your head and you kind of have an understanding of it now. And but in general, I'm around that world quite a bit, and so no, I don't cringe all the time. No.
Yeah.
Do people at the track pity you sometimes still, or have they accepted it as well?
Yeah, and the hard. I mean, most people have accepted it. Most people, but I mean, I still have adults that come up to me that they're like, how's the recovery coming? Like, when do you think you'll be back on the bike?
Oh
And
my god,
it's
absolutely.
and like I had one guy last year, he's at a race and he's like, how's the recovery coming? When do you think you'll be back on the bike? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm really happy and things are going really well. And I don't think I'll ride again, but I'll be around. Still love being here and stuff. And he's like, really? Oh, it's that bad, is it?
Oh my God! Where's the social understanding?
What world are you living in?
Wow.
But the hardest one is like I've had it a few times and it's really cute, but it breaks my heart when little kids come up to me at the track. And I've had a couple of little kids come up to me and say, I wish I could give you my legs so I could watch you race again.
Oh,
That's cute.
it's kind of cute coming from a kid.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, I'm going to be up front, mate. I don't think there's many silver medalists, Olympic silver medalists, who could have an accident like you've had and have such a positive mindset towards their life, mate. I got to say, like, it is impressive. You're an impressive guy. You really are. And we really appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. I think it will help a lot of people. Also, are you earning just heaps of cash doing motivational speaking? Because I don't know why. Like, you would be ripping it up in America. I hope you are.
Do the circuit.
I haven't done any in America. I did a couple in Australia though, and I did enjoy it. I was pretty nervous to do it, but I really enjoyed it for myself as well to just to tell my story. And I was nervous to do it, but I guess the good thing about it is you're just telling your story and not trying to sell anything. And
Exactly.
if people can take something from it and apply it to their own life, then that's the main thing. And
I think you can help a lot of people, mate. I really mean that. I think you can help a lot of people
guys like you as well.
Thank you, brother.
No, thanks to guys like yourself and Booty, who I met, who have helped me. And I think the work that you're doing, there's a lot that we can do to continue to educate people and help move this world in a better direction and support everyone equally.
I'm coming to stay at when COVID's done, Angus and I are coming to San Diego.
Get the couch ready.
Yes. We're coming to stay.
Absolutely.
We'll have a few beers. I'm ready. Mate, you're a star. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and being so honest with us, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll be in Melbourne soon. We miss it. It's one of my favorite cities in the world.
Beers on us, man.
And if people want to get in touch with you, what do they do? How do they do that?
Just message me on. I'm not great on social media, but I do read the messages on Instagram, and I love when I'm an open book. Ask me any questions, and especially those that are in similar situations or even just going through a tough time. It's struggle, and if I can lend some experience or help, or even just be a shoulder to lean on and chat to, I'll do my best. So just on social media, and then I am doing a little bit of public speaking. So I'm with TLA. So reach out to TLA, and
we'll have the link in the description.
Beautiful.
For sure. Yeah. Well, you are right in your book. When you finally put the pen down, we'll be buying and reading, mate. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Sam Willoughby, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys.